past few months, we have watched with utmost horror and disbelief and grief the selfless, non-violent actions taken by young Tibetans inside Tibet to alert the world to the ongoing atrocities being committed there by the People's Republic of China. From 16th March 2011 to date, 22 Tibetans have committed self-immolation, of whom at least 15 are reported to have died following their protest. There were earlier unconfirmed reports of 3 immolations from Sertha, which appears not to have occurred. This figure also does not include others, including Dabe, who was shot by security personnel when he set himself on fire on 27 February 2009, and Tobeng Muduk in 1998 in India. While there is no clear information on the current whereabouts and well-being of Dabe, Tobeng Muduk died from his actions. For Buddhists, taking life, including one's own, is an extremely negative and forbidden act. So why are young Tibetans, mostly monks and nuns, engaging in these acts? There are a number of ways to interpret this ultimate offering of one's own body and life. One interpretation is that it is an act of utmost hopelessness, and the Tibetan Youth Congress rejects this suggestion outrightly. The clear messages left by some of the self-immolators have made this very clear. Sopa Rinpoche, a renowned religious figure who self-immolated on 8th January 2012, wrote, I quote, "I am not self-immolating for my personal interests or problems, but for the 6 million Tibetans who have no freedom and for the return of His Holiness the Dalai Lama to Tibet." Another interpretation is that the desire to make a change is not matched by the tools at one's disposal, so one gives the maximum, one's life. A third way of interpreting these actions is to conclude that despite the almost impossible challenges of bringing change at this point of time, an indomitable spirit and determination to act prevails among the Tibetan people. Their acts serve to inform and warn the outside world of the enormous pent-up resentment and the willingness to act with many more resources when the right time comes. TYC subscribes to this last point of view. The self-immolators are true warriors. True warriors who knew exactly what they were doing. They know that the ripple effect of their acts will strengthen resistance against the Chinese government and its occupation of Tibet. The Chinese government can no longer view these recent actions in Tibet as merely uncomfortable and embarrassing incidents, but instead as a very real and significant threat. They should understand the potential for further actions and the magnitude of what they represent. The Chinese government and the world at large should not misinterpret these acts as simply ethnic conflicts or struggle for religious freedom. So long as China continues to occupy Tibet and oppress the Tibetan people, they will continue to resist the fundamental denial of their freedoms. Two recurring slogans among the self-immolators were demands for His Holiness the Dalai Lama to return to Tibet and freedom for Tibet. And in some cases they were very, very clear about independence for Tibet. Calling for the return of His Holiness the Dalai Lama can only mean that they are demanding the larger goal of a future free Tibet. For both believers and non-believing Tibetans, the return of His Holiness the Dalai Lama to Tibet symbolizes the reinstatement of the essence of Tibet to its rightful place. It is just the same as when people all over the world demanded the release of Nelson Mandela how the rallying cry for the struggle for justice in South Africa was free Nelson Mandela. Everyone understood then that that was not just a call for the release of one individual or one individual political prisoner, but for the freedom of a nation. The world leaders and governments and the international community has a responsibility to prevent the crisis from spiraling out of control, causing further casualties. The rare footage you saw today, and maybe in a couple of days as we are talking, there are things happening in Tibet which we don't know about, and information will start trickling in. These are sent by people who risk their lives. And these footage of self-immolations and violence by the Chinese against the Tibetans are compelling evidence of untold crimes committed against humanity by the government of China. Indifference and staying silent in this face of tragedy is criminal. Tibet is a perfect example of a major tragedy occurring right now in front of our very own eyes, with no one taking action. Therefore, the Tibetan Youth Congress calls on world governments to take meaningful action to respond to what is happening inside Tibet and show their commitment to universal fundamental human rights for all people wherever they are. The flames ignited in Tibet will not be doused by time, and the casualties and suffering will only grow and continue. The sacrifices of those who have given their lives exemplify clearly how China is failing in its efforts to win the hearts and minds of the Tibetan people, either through propaganda or force. China must wake up to the reality that it cannot alter the minds and hearts of the Tibetan people, a people who will forever stand united in their will to see their country free again.